Okay, well, Jai Baba and welcome everyone. Tonight, as you know, we have as our special guest Jasmine Patel, and I'll quickly read her bio that she has sent, and then we'll have her join us, and then we'll have our questions after she's finished with her talk. So, Jasmine says she grew up in a Baba family. Her grandfather and her mother both met Meher Baba on several occasions. Baba's mother, Shireen, and Jasmine's great 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 grandmother, Gulnar, were first cousins. Jasmine's mother is named Gulnar after her great great grandmother. Her grandfather, Boman, grew up in Pune playing with Baba's brother, Jal and Padri. Padri was Baba's cousin and one of the lifelong disciples of Baba. He would describe going to Zoroastrian gatherings in the 1920s, in which Baba and the mandali would show up. It is hard to imagine the informality of the early years with Baba. I can just imagine. Jasmine started coming to Meher Spiritual Center as a child, got involved in the youth savas, and in the last 2 years has co-hosted the Not So Youth Savas for parents who attended the youth savas and now have their children attending the youth savas. Jasmine will be sharing the story of her great-grandmother Gulcher and her relationship with her Baba. Get ready for some laughs and see how the story comes full circle. I can't wait. So Jasmine, welcome again and over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and thank you for inviting me and having me. Some of you may have heard this story before. And if you have, I'm sorry you have to hear it again. And if you haven't, I'm sure you will find this very amusing. So my great grandmother Gulcher is my mom's mother. And we're related to Baba from my mom's dad's side of the family. So my mom's great grandmother Gulcher on her mom's side, of course, knew about Baba, right? But she was a very devout Zoroastrian, so she thought Meher Baba was just a heretic, basically. Like, who does he think he is? He's having people bow down to him. Does he not realize this is a big sin? And so she was very anti-Baba. So half of the family was very anti-Baba, and the other half of the family was very, saw Baba as the avatar, basically. So her husband, Rustam, actually became very, very ill. And nobody knew what was wrong with him. He was going from doctor to specialist to specialist and, trying all these different medicines and therapies, and nothing was really helping him. So, of course, within the family, everyone's like, Gulcher, why don't you go tell Merog? They called Mer Baba Merog in the family. And she's like, I'm not going to him. Why would I go to him and tell him anything? It's not like he can do anything. We're going to all the doctors. The doctors can't help him. So why would I go to him? And they're like, but you're telling everybody anyway. So what would be the big deal if you tell him? Everybody knows. He should know too. So finally, somehow they convince her that she should go tell Baba that her husband Rustam is sick. So she goes and she shows up, no formalities, kind of just shows up and uh, gets to see Baba and tells him, I've come because they told me to come tell you my husband Rustam is very sick and nobody knows what's wrong with him. So I'm just letting you know, like just very matter of fact like that. And, he nods his head and he says, like, I know, I know. And he gives her a rose and through Erech, he tells her, put this rose where your most precious things are, what you value the most, put this rose there. So she's like, okay. So she comes home and she brings this rose home with her. And she's like, where my most valuable things are, where am I going to put this? So she wasn't a very rich woman, right? But she had a little drawer where she kept her little bit of jewelry that she had. So she takes this rose, and I don't know if you all have seen, like in India, especially in the Zoroastrian homes, they have this big, like ornate wooden, like cupboard. Within the cupboard, there are some drawers that you can lock, and within one of these lockable drawers is her jewelry. So she unlocks her little, jewelry drawer, puts this rose in there, locks it back up. And, over the next couple months, her husband slowly just starts recovering without any more doctors or any more specialists. And about 2.5 months go by, and he's pretty much recovered. He's recovered enough that they're attending somebody's wedding in the evening. So she opens up her little drawer to put on some jewelry because she's getting dressed up to go to this wedding. And she looks at the rose and she thinks about Baba, and it's like, okay, the rose is still there, and puts her little bit of jewelry on, locks up her drawer, takes the key with her to the wedding. And they come back later in the evening, like at night, actually. And she opens up her drawer to put her jewelry away and starts screaming, "We've been robbed! We've been robbed!" And her husband, who was like changing and stuff too, comes like, what's missing? Like, what's been robbed? I don't see anything robbed. What's happened? Why are you screaming? And she's like, my jewelry is gone. All my jewelry that was in this drawer is gone. And he's like, well, did you lock it before we left? And she's like, yes, I just unlocked it with my key to put this jewelry that I'm wearing into the drawer. It's gone. But guess what's sitting there? The rose is just sitting there staring at her, right? Like looking back, almost mocking her. And like he and they decide they're not going to like inform the police or anything because there's no forced entry, there's no broken door. The only thing missing is the jewelry. And she says to Rustam, her husband, I know who did this. This is Meher Baba. Tomorrow, I'll see about him tomorrow. So she takes off her jewelry that she has, puts it in the drawer, locks it up, looks at that rose, and is just, so angry. So she goes to bed that night, wakes up the next morning, goes to the store, and back in the day, like at the stationery stores, you could buy like a scroll. She buys one of these big scrolls and she writes Baba a letter. And in this letter, she curses and calls Baba every name in the book. And, Erich's job is to read letters to Baba, right? So he later told us this story in Mandali Hall, and we were laughing so hard, like we all couldn't catch our breath, tears streaming out of our eyes. Because he says, there's some things she said even I'd never heard before, but she could curse worse than a sailor, your great grandmother Gulcher. And I was so embarrassed. I'm like, my God. So anyway, so my great grandmother writes this letter. She sends it off to Baba, and Baba gets this letter. Erich's job is to read all the letters. So Erich is going through the letters and he takes this one and he unscrolls it because it's a scroll. And he slowly just closes the scroll and puts it aside and goes to the next one and the next one. And Baba, being Baba, knows what this letter is, right? So he keeps telling Erich that one, like pointing, like read that one. And Erich keeps telling Baba, oh, Baba, later, we'll do that one later. And he just keeps putting it off. So for half an hour, 45 minutes, he's putting Baba off because he's like, how can I read this? All of this happens in public, right? Like Erich would read letters, Baba would dictate what to write back to people. And Erich is like, I just couldn't even imagine reading this to Baba. How am I supposed to say these horrible things to him? So finally, after about 45 minutes, Baba gets like, like claps, gets very angry and tells Erich, read this letter, basically. So Erich like unscrolls it and he's like, I kind of shrank as I, and hid behind it. And I was kind of whispering because it was so bad. And Baba, being Baba, is like, louder, Erich, louder, louder, louder. And poor Erich had to like loudly read all this cussing about how she thought he was so awful. And I mean, went through just every sailor's curse word you can think of, that how Baba was terrible and it was his fault that all this jewelry was gone. And she knows that he did this and he should be ashamed of himself. And she's not rich. And how could he take like her little bit of jewelry? Of course, peppered in there are all the curse words, right? So Erich is like, I finish and I close the scroll and I kind of look at Baba and I'm scared. But he's
Yes.
like, Baba was beet red and he was laughing so hard. He had tears streaming down his eyes. And he finally catches his breath and he tells Erich, I love Gulcher so much. I just love her because her heart is just so pure. Like, look, she didn't even let me go. Me. She just kind of let me have it, just told me like it was. And he's like, but I want you to write her back for me. And I want you to tell her Yes, the jewelry is gone, but what he had right in this letter, the line was, "Your most precious jewel has been saved." And so she gets this letter several days later and she receives it and she's still quite upset because her jewelry's gone. That's like all she had, right? Her most valuable things. And she reads the letter and she kind of came to an understanding with Baba. She read it and she said, well, he's right about that. He's right about that. Like she realized, well, yeah, my jewelry might be gone, but my husband, Rustam, is fine. Like he recovered without any more doctors. Yeah, it's a mystery. We don't know what happened, but this happened. So in our family, like we all know this story. It's just a funny
Don't
story.
need mute.
It's been told back and forth, back and forth. So now it comes full circle because in 1986 we went to India, one of our trips. It was my second trip to India, my brother's second trip to India. And my mom, having met Baba, of course, had met Mehera and all the women mandali too. And my dad and I were with Erich, and my mom was walking in the garden, saw Mehera on the porch, and Mehera called her over. Like she remembered my mom, like Gulnar, come. So my mom took my brother, who was probably 9 at the time too, Neville, up to the porch, and they had a nice talk with Mehera, and they reminisced. And Mehera played pickup sticks with my brother Neville, and they just had a lovely time. And then, of course, as they're leaving, Mehera gives them a hug and gives each of them a rose, right? And my mom, being my mom, knows this story so well. And, she's coming off the porch and she tells us, and I'm thinking, oh God, Baba, why has this rose come back into the family now? Like, now through Mehera, you've given this rose again. What am I supposed to do with it? And she's like, and Baba, like I like my material things. You've put me in this world. I want to enjoy material things. I don't want to have this rose and have my things just disappear, like what happened to my grandma. What am I going to do now? So this conundrum as she's coming down the steps of what is she going to do with this rose? And we can't throw it away because Mehera gave it to us. So what are we going to do? So in her quick little thinking, as they kind of come around from the porch and Mehera can't see them anymore, she tells my brother, I want you to pretend this is prasad and eat it. So she breaks the petals off and she shoves her rose petals into her mouth, takes Neville, my brother's name is Neville, takes his rose petals and shoves them in his mouth. And roses smell wonderful, but they don't taste good. Not in like a high, what, like a whole rose, like. So my brother's wanting to spit it out, of course, and he's crying. He's 9 years old, and she's like, "You can't spit it out. It's prasad. Just eat it." So as they're chewing this rose and choking it down, they finally come to me and my dad, and we're with Erich. And of course, Neville's like crying, and we're like, well, what happened? Why is he crying? And Neville's like, she made me eat a rose. And my mom's like, wait, wait, let me tell you. So my mom starts telling this story of her grandmother Gulcher, and Erich stops her and goes, oh, Gulnar, I know this story so well because for all my days, I will never forget having to read that letter to Baba. And so then he recounted the story to us in Mandali Hall, and others were there too. It may be one of the recorded stories when he told it. And everybody was just laughing, tears streaming out of our eyes because he told it in such a funny way. And you could feel Erich's like just his heart, like, being so concerned that I had to say these awful curse words to Baba and read all this hate to him. But yet Baba found this humorous and funny and he loved Gulcher even though like she had done this and then he tells my mom, you didn't have to eat the rose. And my mom tells Erich too. He's like, but I wasn't going to take it home. If I took it home and kept it, like, what if my things would disappear? She's like, Erich, she's like, I know you all gave up everything to be with Baba, but she's like, but I can't do that. I can't like just give up everything. So I ate the rose. It's in me now. And I'm giving up my bad sanskaras and things maybe that way, but I don't want to give up my things. And she had everybody in Mandali Hall just laughing because that humanness was there, like, like our human qualities. And, sometimes we think, oh, well, if you're in Baba's family, there must be something very like special about you or something. And it's like, nope, you're just still human. And like, half of the family loved Baba, the other half like kind of hated Baba. And then you had, of course, my great grandmother Gulcher, who finally came to an understanding with Baba. But uh, it was a very fun time. So that was my story that I was going to share with you this evening. And yes, my grandfather, when he was younger, the story, I don't really remember these stories too well, but in the early days of when Baba was becoming who he was, they would still go to a lot of these like sort of gatherings, Zoroastrian gatherings that would happen. And it was very informal, right? So he just talked about like, yeah, and he was just like a normal guy back then with his like friends, like coming to these events and whether it was somebody's wedding or like a Navjot ceremony or some jashan or something, he would just show up with people and he would be there. Um, but he said like, as Baba became who he was, of course, like my mom and my grandfather both like described like when you saw him, he was glowing. There was light like emanating from him. And like the beauty, like my mom talked about every time she would see him, she would have all, I'm going to tell him this, I'm going to tell him that. This time I need to ask him this. And you get there in front of him and you bow down or he embraces you and whatever it is. And she's like, and your mind just goes blank and you're just absorbed in his beauty and this love. And like, there's nothing there anymore. It's like meditating without meditating, right? Like your mind just completely goes blank. And I've, of course, didn't see Baba in person. Um, Not my time. But my dad's side of the family is very interesting too. My dad actually went to boarding school in Pune, and when he started dating my mom, he had the opportunity to come meet Mehera Baba, but he never did. And he regretted it so much until Erich kind of explained things to him. So he didn't come see Baba. His family had been to Shirdi and Sakori, knew, Sai Baba, knew about Upasni, knew like Godavari Mataji, like, knew all of those folks. But my dad had this in Bombay, there was this guy that ran the Baba Center named Manik Mehta. And, so, you've probably read about him because Bao talked about him as well. He actually was not such a good guy, and he went around like pretending he was Baba, but he was a womanizer and not a good guy. So somehow my dad thought that was the Meher Baba that my mom's family was related to and followed. So, my dad didn't want to make her feel bad, but he never met Baba, even though he had so many chances. So it wasn't until like I think I was 7 or maybe I was 11 and my brother was 7. My dad had a dream about Baba. And in that dream, Baba like pulls him close and embraces him like up on Seclusion Hill. And he like felt so much love. He like woke up and he told my mom, like, hey, go get those pictures of Meher Baba because we had some pictures in the house. He didn't mind that. I had a dream and I want to see like if it was that Meher Baba fellow you talk about. So my mom went and got 2 pictures. She got like the 1925 picture where he looks like Jesus, and then like the older 1958 picture. And she's like, that was him, the older Baba, like the 1958 picture. And so after that, like, Baba just turned the key in my dad's heart, and he just had so much love for Baba. So he told Erich this story that, Erich, my bad luck is that I didn't visit Baba. I had the chance. I had the chance so many times, Gulnar told me, but because this Manik Mehta fellow like messed things up for me, I thought he was Meher Baba. And Erich said, Loveji, my dad's name was Loveji, that Manik actually came and asked for forgiveness from Baba, and Baba just forgave him, because he repented and he asked for forgiveness. And my dad's like, well, that's great for him, but he ruined it for me. Look, I didn't get to like meet him, even though I had the chance. And Erich told him, but look, his Nazar has been on you this whole time. You married into his family. And when the time was right for you, he turned the key in your heart and you recognize who he is. So don't worry that you didn't get to see him because he was seeing you, he was watching you the whole time. And that was so touching, right? Like, for him. Um, and he became that person that wore his Meher Baba button everywhere. And if anybody asked who Meher Baba was, like, we all would always just be like, oh, that's, like um, our old relative, Meher Baba, but he's a saint in India. We would come up with something, right? Like, because like we didn't want to say, well, that's God. my dad would just be like, that's Meher Baba. He's God. That's the latest incarnation of Baba. You believe in Jesus, right? So if you believe in Jesus or Muhammad or Krishna or anybody, same person, just the most recent version. Like he had no qualms about just telling people that, like just matter of factly, just like that. And for a while, we were always like, Dad, should you just really tell them that? Maybe just tell them his name. Baba said, just tell them my name. And if it's their time, they'll recognize me. He's like, well, I'm just helping out. I'm helping out a little bit. If they want to believe it, they can. If not, they can just believe I'm crazy. So, so those are my little stories. Of the family. And hopefully one day my brother will come on Baba Zoom and tell you his story of Baba and how he actually saw Baba on the center when he was a child. So, but I want him to tell that story. So I'm not going to tell you his story, but I'm happy to answer questions
Uh,
or
well,
take your
beautiful.
comments or
Yeah.
hear your stories. I always find, like your stories of how you came to Baba so much more interesting. Mine's boring. Like I was born into a Baba family. It's boring. My parents knew who he was, so I didn't have to find him. And like some of your stories to me are amazing of how you found him or saw a picture and recognized him. It's to me that's fascinating.
Hi, Jasmine. I'm Diane, and I'm going to be calling on people for you when they raise their hand.
Thank
But
you,
I'm
Diane.
going to cut the line right now, and then I'll get to you, Marta. I would love to hear more about your story personally, because I know that a lot of people are raised in Baba families, but does not mean that you've brought him into your heart and sustained
Yeah.
a relationship. So I would love it if you could share about how he stayed with you.
You know,
He
that's
gave you
actually
the
a really
ropes.
good question. So we started coming to the center when we were really young. My parents started bringing us, like, I think maybe we were pretty young when we started coming. But because it was Myrtle Beach, my parents like had this rule, like when we were on center, they would let us kind of wander around and do our thing. And they would also during the day take us out and let us play mini putt-putt and go to the water slides and do all the fun stuff that's in Myrtle Beach. But once it was time for the evening program, we had to be back on the center by that time. So, they didn't bring us to the center and lock us in like some folks did with their kids. They let us have fun in Myrtle Beach, and also like enjoy the center and soak in that atmosphere of the center. And then my brother and I were also very involved in the youth sahavas. And honestly, the youth sahavas does something and it turns the key in the hearts of young people. And it, really allows us to like develop our own relationship with Baba. But the key is also you're doing it with your peers. And that's huge because, we all have like probably lifetimes together with Baba. And with our peers, that peer group is who you've been with for lifetimes, probably, right? If we're lucky enough to know Baba in this life. And there's just something so powerful about that, like being with your peers on the center, where the center is just there for you and you're bowing down at Baba's bed. You're going to the barn and the lagoon cabin and still having fun. Like you're having a fun talent show in the meeting place and you're having a square dance and you're having beach time, but you also are like allowing Baba into your life that way. And he does the magic. I mean, truly the center and the youth sahavas is what did it. Because you're right. Like, your parents can be Baba lovers. You're born into a Baba family. Your family, says these prayers and tells you who this guy is. Doesn't mean it's anything to you, right? But it just kind of naturally evolved that way through coming to the center and then being involved in the youth sahavas and not having it forced and pushed, or you go to the center, you're going to stay on center. We don't even leave center. Like I've had people tell me my parents would bring me, literally lock me into the center for 10 days. We would not leave. We would do all our grocery shopping before we got there. And then we're just there. And I'm like, wow, oh, okay. Like, so yeah, that's kind of how my love for Baba developed. And it's just grown more and more, honestly. And that's him working, right? That's his work.
And do you have children?
I do. I have a
And
daughter. Her name is Sanaz. She's 18 now, so she just had her last youth sahavas. And she's excited to come back and work the youth sahavas. And it's the same thing for her. She's known about Baba since she was a baby, right? Like from birth, practically. Before birth, even, And yes, she's known who he is and she's all cool with it and everything. But it's not till she came to the youth sahavas that she developed her own relationship with Baba. And I like literally saw her change. So her first youth sahavas was virtual because it was during COVID. And I kind of encouraged her to, okay, it's virtual, but do it. And the virtual one was great, believe me, but it's not the same thing as being on the center, right? So I was so happy when the following year she agreed like she would actually go to the center and she just came back glowing. Like I knew, I'm like, oh, Baba did his magic. I know he did. He turned the key in her heart too. And yeah, so I have one daughter. Her name is Sanaz and she's 18 now. She's off to college. So not too far away, just 2 hours away. So but away, so I miss her.
That's a great story. I realized that he started the first Giving the Rose and the Bachelorette and Bachelor, all that. But
I never thought of the Bachelor and the Bachelorette, but they do give a rose. Oh, that's pretty funny.
I'm glad I made you laugh. You've been making me laugh for the last hour. Let's go to Marta, another Californian.
Thank you, Jasmine. What happened to the jewelry?
We
Did
don't
you ever
know.
find it? Are you
It
kidding?
was never found and it wasn't stolen. And so we can only think like, like Baba said, like, your most precious jewel was saved. Maybe it was like the price that had to be paid or something. I don't know
Wow.
karmically how that works, but the jewelry was never found.
That
It's
was
not
my
like you go back in the drawer into the cupboard or anything. It was,
And the drawer was locked when you came, and the rose was there, but the jewelry was gone. Wow, that's like a miracle for sure.
it is kind of like that, right? But
Well, what other explanation is there? If
yeah.
somebody came in, they wouldn't be able to open the drawer and get out.
because she had the key, like these
had-
ladies back
I
in the
know.
day
So
wore their
it is.
saris
What do
and
you
took their
mean?
keys with them.
It
So
is a miracle.
That was my question too. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. She had the key with her all that. Wow.
Also, I remember because I had my beautiful gold bangles that my mother bought me. I had them stolen years ago from my studio. And I wasn't real upset because I knew that, Baba must have taken them and they were engraved with Mayor Baba inside.
oh.
And it wasn't until years later that I read in one of the Baba books that a lady had come to Baba all upset because her valuable, because you women have beautiful, the Indians have this beautiful jewelry and gold, or some of them have greater and less, and someone had taken all of her beautiful jewelry and she was just weeping and crying at Baba's feet. And she was so upset. And Baba says, be grateful to who took it, he said, because they've taken those sanskaras away from you and they freed you. And then I heard that and I go, oh, of course, Baba did it from love. So that reminded me with your mom's jewelry.
Yep. And we have this like, this belief. I don't know if it's in India or just like the Parsi or Zoroastrian like community, but when you lose something, especially if it's something valuable, it's like, oh, your bad luck went with it. So don't worry about it. And like my great grandfather Rustam, like he was literally dying and nobody knew what was wrong with him. And he went on to like live, many, many more years. And got better without any other medical intervention because nobody knew what was wrong with him. So
I also always thought, whoever has those bracelets, Mayor Baba's name's inside of them.
yeah.
So that's lucky for them.
Wow. That's a really good story, Marta.
Yeah. I got some good mileage out of that one.
Let's go over to India and Mehera, you're on.
Baba, Jai Baba. Okay. Jasmine, I want to ask you, when your brother Tate put that rose in his mouth, what was his feeling?
He was a 9-year-old kid who just wanted to spit it back out, is what it seemed like. He put it in his mouth and he started chewing it. It didn't taste good. He tried to spit it out and my mom shoved it back in, told him it's prasad and he needed to eat it. Surprisingly, neither my mom nor my brother got sick because I was thinking, oh my God, like we're so careful when we come to India. We don't just willy-nilly eat anything. And she just ate a rose, like. And my mom was like, had faith. She's like, this is a rose Mehera gave from her garden. Nothing is going to happen to us. And she was right. Nothing happened. It
Because
didn't
I'm
taste
asking
good,
you
but
this question, I'll tell you in this thing, because in India, in many this thing, Indian sweets, which we have as in our Parsi sweets, they put these little rose petals inside
yes.
on top. So I wanted to ask you why, what was this thing? That is why. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Let's hop on over to Chicago. Marvin.
You're muted, Marvin. Oh,
is that muted?
We can
Anyhow, yeah, the same sort of thing happened to my son. Grew up in a Baba family and never seemed to be interested whatsoever in Baba. Went down to Usahavis, and I think he said he had come out of the bedroom and was just touching the stone in Erich's room, and just fell to his knees. So Baba does his magic. It's such a beautiful experience. Wow. I know for myself, I met him on a blind date.
You met Baba on a blind date? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
That's a good story, Marvin.
Was there a rose involved?
Yeah, it turned out there was a rose involved. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Wow.
I was invited to go to a blind date, and the date was not there, but Baba's picture was there.
Interesting.
And I fell immediately. I don't know what it was. I still don't understand it. I just was looking in the door and I saw this picture of Mayor Baba.
Mm.
And I felt this is where I've got to be. And there was no one there. But I was so determined to find out who Mayor Baba was, because I heard about him in '66. I was someone offered to take me to India to meet him, and I turned him down. But this is '89 now, and it's many years later, and I had never seen a picture of Mayor Baba until that time. And,
so you met your ultimate beloved on that blind date.
Yes, and I was so determined to find out who it was, and I said, I know that the person is here, and I went out into the alley with my friend yelling at me. He said, "You're going to get us arrested. It's after midnight. You got to stop this." And I just ran through the alley, and there was a studio in the back of the building. And indeed, this person was back there, and she was a Baba lover, and she, I enticed her to come in and talk to us, even though it was so late. And she did, and, she, I don't know, it was just a very strange meeting, and I was just totally unattracted to her at all. But I couldn't get the picture of Baba out of my mind. And I finally figured out I was in love with him. And
Terry wants to know how old you were.
I was 44.
So did I get this straight?
Yeah.
You got there, and in the seat at the table was Mayor Baba's picture. But then
No, in the door, in the door of the apartment. It's an apartment building, a 12 flat, with no doorbells, no signs whatsoever where this person lived. And I just knew that that's where she lived. And my friend, who had brought me to this blind date, said, "No, I think she's in the other building." And I said, "No, she's here." I knew she was there. And anyhow, so I get back home, and I made a piece of jewelry for the person that kept me from meeting my blind date. And when I saw this person, and her name, same name, her name was both Lisa. When I saw her, I had the strangest feeling, and I dropped the piece of jewelry because I looked into her eyes, and I felt there was no contact whatsoever. And I've never felt that about another human being. So anyhow, so after that, I tried to call the Baba lover, and she wouldn't take my call for months. She kept hanging up on me, and hanging up on me, and hanging up on me, and finally she just said, "No, I just don't want to stay, go out with you." And so I left roses at her studio door. And then she said, "I'll go out with you, but I won't be able to talk." And it was on Silence Day. And so I went to my first Baba meeting, Silence Day, and I did quite well because my mother is deaf, and my employee was deaf, and I knew sign language. Nobody in the group knew sign language. So I just wrote notes, and it was kind of interesting. But then she brought me down to Myrtle Beach and left me. Said, "This is where you got to be," and she was absolutely right. Anyhow, it was a very, very confusing story, but it was fun. As meeting Baba for the first time is always fun. And then comes the work.
Thank you, Marvin. Let's go over to Colorado with Richard.
Almost Utah. That's a new song I'm working on. Almost Utah. Jasmine, I have a question for you, and I don't know how to ask it. Diane might be able to help me, but so have you had any heartbreak, tragedies, whatever that you really had to work through with Baba?
I've been fortunate in that he has not tested me that way yet. And I'm hoping he doesn't. I've led an enchanted life with Baba thus far. Yeah, I have not, Richard.
Can you tell us about who you married? Was he a Baba lover before you?
So that's actually a great story. So, my husband, his name is Hermes. So my married last name is Naderwala, but I didn't change my last name. When I married him, I did not know that his mother had met Meher Baba. She didn't tell me, actually. She'd been to our house, seen all the pictures of Baba. My mom had told them how she's related to Baba and all that. And, so it wasn't until like a year later, after we'd been married, that she tells me, "By the way, I want to tell you, I met Meher Baba in Bombay." And I said, "You met him?" She's like, "Yes, because my father was like a great believer in Baba." And she's like, she's like, "I am too." Like, I am too, but I didn't, want to tell you because I didn't want that to be your, I didn't want that to influence whether you married my son or not. And like, I'm like, I didn't know. And she never told me. He didn't know his mother had met Baba either. Like he didn't know, like because it just had never come up. So a year after I got married, she told me that she had met him as well. And we met like, I was actually in Seattle doing grad school and my residency, finishing my residency. He was in Chicago, like near Chicago. And our parents had mutual friends who thought we would be great for each other and wanted to introduce us. So I get this call from my mom. Oh, we heard about this very nice boy. Are you interested? I'm like, well, where is he? Like somewhere near Chicago. I'm like, I'm in Seattle. Like, what's the point? No, I'm not like, and my mom's like, but Jasmine, if anything, you'll just have another good friend. You have so many good friends, guys, girls, everybody. So what's the harm in just talking to him? And so I'm like, okay, fine. Like, yeah, give me his number, give him my number, whatever. And we just really hit it off. We met 6 months after we started talking. And then like a year later, we got married. And then a year after that, I found out his mom had met Baba too. So I'm like, Baba, you're such a trickster. You're all kind of tangled and involved in my life. And you keep it secret till like after.
What's his relationship with Baba then? He
Um,
wasn't
you know,
raised.
he's like a Baba liker and becoming more of a Baba lover. Like, now he's been to the center several times and Baba's turning that key nicely. He's very he's an engineer, so very scientific and linear minded. But you feel with your heart, right? Like Baba is all about heart, not the mind so much. And so he's starting to feel that. And especially this last time we were on the center just 3 weeks ago. And Bob is turning that key very nicely. So it's fun to watch.
Put a rose in his briefcase.
I should.
So Jasmine Patel is your maiden name, is that right?
It is, yeah. My married name is Naterwala, but because my degrees and all had Patel, I never went through the formal process of like changing my last name. And then
Right.
my dad's family, Patel, like that last name is like a Gujarati last name, but the Parsis in India have it too.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
changed
sure.
long ago, yeah. So
And
I
your
kept
husband,
my name.
is he Parsi, your
He is,
husband, or
yeah.
he is?
He is
He is.
Parsi, yeah.
Okay, I've never heard that surname before. Sounds wonderful.
Naterwala, I know. I'm like, so what did your family do? He's like, probably sometime back in the day they were making that Nader, like the cane furniture.
Jane. Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Naterwala, like, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Netherana, right. Okay. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I was exactly wondering, just like Marta, how did that jewelry disappear when your mother had the key? She took it to the wedding with her.
That
And
was the thing. And it's like what really was some kind of payment, I think, like for
yeah,
his
it was,
help, some
yeah,
karmic something.
yes, Baba took away her sanskars for her
Yeah.
attachment to the jewelry and gave her your father's health back.
Yeah, like her most precious jewel, right? Like he was saved.
But also, Jasmine, if Baba hadn't taken the jewelry and just cured him, it wouldn't have been as dramatic.
And I don't think she would not have put together that it was Baba. Like
Yeah.
that changed things for her, right?
That was the connection,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Sorry, I know it's your turn.
Let's go to Seville.
Jasmine, for sharing your story. Or your family story. Very interesting to hear. I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about what Diane had originally asked, like how, because you were raised in a Baba family, like like you mentioned, like the Utsahavas, but if you have like any specific moments, or I mean, I don't mind, like, mean to pry, like you don't have to share, but if there's anything else, or maybe for your daughter, like, is there been a time where it's felt like more like, wow, like this is actually like it's real, like, if that makes sense, if you mind
Yeah, it
talking
makes
more.
perfect sense.
Thank
So,
you.
like my connection with Baba has always been through nature. And the center, of course, is just beautiful, right? But like, like how do like I see Baba in the world? Like I'll see a cloud that looks like Baba. And I've taken pictures of clouds or like a image like on like wood grain, like, you know, like it's the natural wood grain, but I can see Baba in it and I'll take a picture of it. And like he shows up that way for me in so many places, you know, or like Mehera saw him in that tree, how he showed up in the tree outside of her room. Like I'll see Baba that way. So I work as a my specialty is acupuncture. So I'm constantly opening like packets of acupuncture needles that I use on patients. And there was a time where one entire packet of needles, like half the needles in there, when I would open them, the expiration date ink, like through the packaging for half those needles, like literally looked like Baba's image. Like I have the pictures. I'm like, I'm not like just making it up. So it's like with those types of like things happening that like sort of grows my faith. Like, you know, I see him. And that's how I want to see him because my brother actually physically saw Baba. And I remember being on center and praying like, oh, Baba, please don't appear like that to me because I think I would have a heart attack and die. Like, don't do that to me, Baba. And like since then, like I see him in sand, like in sand, like an image in the sand or in the clouds or on a leaf or oh, I opened up these needle packets. Look, I see Baba. Like I can handle that. I couldn't handle him like physically appearing, I don't think. Um, so you know, in those ways, and sometimes in my work with my patients too, like, you know, I see patients with all kinds of illnesses. And sometimes when people are just so ill, and literally when people are very, very ill, they just have to surrender, right? And seeing that surrenderance in people who don't even know him, but I can see that they've completely are surrendered. They're completely hopeless and helpless and surrendered. And my little part in helping them in whatever kind of relief I can give them is almost a blessing for me when you see someone like in that state. So through my work too, like I feel like my faith in Baba has grown quite a bit.
Anyone else have questions for
Tony, Tony.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't have the raise your hand button here on the bottom for some reason today. Anyway, Jasmine, I really enjoyed your story so much. Thank you. And in listening to people talk about how the jewelry was replaced by the rose was there, and it reminds me of a story which maybe you're familiar with, but in the early days, Baba had sent one of the disciples out on an errand, and it was at some great distance away. And while he was out, he fell into a well, and he was going to drown. He was going to die. There was no one around. He was shouting. No one could hear him. And at that very same moment, as they pieced it together later, Baba called one of them over and said, take that bicycle and smash it and throw it down the well. And pretty much at the same time, some kid came along and got help for this disciple and got him out. And when he got home, they, like, all the disciples looked at each other like, whoa, this is when, and Baba just kind of just brushed it off. He said it was a gross exchange, that he'd saved his life by replacing him with the well. So, you know, Baba exchanged the jewelry for her husband. That's it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think, I have another question, because I mean, I think lots of people wanted to have Baba prove himself by healing or doing some sort of miracle. When I hear your family story about that, I would imagine she told other people about it. No, she didn't.
And that's probably why like that was okay to have happened to her because she didn't believe in him in the first place. And having this happen, like she actually kind of hated him. My jewelry's gone, like my little bit that I had. And then kind of came to an understanding of, oh, well, yeah, he's right. My most precious jewel is saved. So she came to an understanding with Baba, but she was such a vocal opponent of him that she wasn't going to go out telling this story to people. Or, you know, like she really didn't. Within the family, we told the story. We all within the family knew the story, but it's not till like my mom's generation. So like a generation later. So her mom started telling that story, then my mom started telling the story, but it's just within the family. And so now it's really getting out there because we're telling the story, but she did not tell the story, like besides within the family.
People just don't like to say I was wrong.
Exactly. Right? Our egos and our human nature, like, what is she going to do? Be like, oh my God, like I totally cursed him out and he actually is the avatar. You think she was going to say that?
On that,
Okay, so
any other questions for this fine woman?
so Jasmine, how was your great
Tell
great
Tony that if you go to react, the
sorry.
heart,
Yes.
then you'll see raise hand.
Ah,
I know, I was searching for it too for a long time. Sorry.
What were you asking?
Yeah, Jasmine, I was just wondering your connection, your great great grandmother,
Great
Gulnar,
great great grandmother,
great
Gulnar,
grandmother.
and
Okay,
Shireen were first
our
cousins.
cousins. So how were they cousins? Can you elaborate on
So
that?
that I don't know. I have to pull the family tree out and we just moved. So it's like I think it's at the bank. So I don't it's from my great 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 grandmother Gulnar. So my mom's father's side of the family.
Yeah.
That's the side.
Okay. Okay, got it. So I'm guessing their last name was Irani too?
Irani, yep.
Irani, right. Okay, got it. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else? So you are hosting now, Jasmine, the not so young Sabas at the center. Is that?
Yeah, it's that is actually not at the center. What that is so many of us have kids going to the Sahavas, and many of us come to drop our kids off there. Some of us stay in Myrtle Beach, even though the center is closed to us. So I ran into a few folks who I was at the Sahavas with, and I'm like, oh, your kids are going now too. And it just kind of organically, we put this together. We meet off center, but we do like discussion groups and we, talk about Baba and our lives. And so we have a not so youth Sahavas while our kids are having Sahavas on center. So
Wonderful.
it kind of came about and everyone who's now attended really enjoys it. Some people stay the whole week. Some folks stay like the beginning couple days. Some folks like drop their kids off, but then come back to pick them up a day or two before they'll stay in Myrtle Beach. So it's been so nice reconnecting with all those folks too. And my daughter, like she's so interesting. So, she said to me like, I've never met these people in my life till I met them at Sahavas, but I feel like I've known them forever. And I told her, I said, Sanaz, you've known them for lifetimes. That's your peer group that has been with Baba for lifetimes. And that's why you feel so connected to them. Yes, the center is magical. It works as magic, but you don't feel like that about like my generation of people. It's your generation of people because you all have been with Baba for lifetimes together. And when that collective energy gets together, it's amazing. So, yeah, so reconnecting with my peer group has also been really wonderful through this whole not so youth office.
Great. And you live in Oregon, is that right?
That is right. Yeah, but I grew up in Maryland. So I grew
Oh,
up on the East Coast. So we would come to the center every summer, sometimes twice a summer if Bauji came, and sometimes we'd come in the winter too, like over the holiday, the Christmas holiday. So lots of time on center.
So, Jasmine, does your mother call you Hasmin?
No, Jasmine.
They just call you Jasmine?
Yeah.
So, you have two daughters?
Just one.
You have one child, and now she's going to be going away. When she was growing up, I mean, did you have was there prayers and a ritual from your family that was passed on to your family? It's like they do in India. So much of the Indians have a beautiful kind of prayers in the morning or in the evening or whatever. Did you have that too in the West here?
Yeah, we had, we'd certainly do Baba's prayers. We had that. And, we had her Navjot ceremony, which is like the Zoroastrian ceremony. But, my mom's cousin, um, actually, Baba did her Navjot ceremony. There was a group of kids whose Navjots he did, and she was one of them. My mom wasn't, but my mom's cousin was.
So who was that again? Would you?
Mirna Zirani.
Oh, okay. Got it.
She was one of a group of kids. And also with that, so my grandmother Gulcher was very upset. This is before the jewelry incident, right? She's like, this is not a real Navjot. What? He just put their sadron and tied their kasti for them. What is this that you're doing? And she was so upset that this is how they had their daughters like Navjot done because it didn't have the typical ritual that goes along with it. She came to terms with that later too, though.
So when Zoroastrians, that's a Zoroastrian thing, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It's a Zoroastrian sort of initiation into the faith, kind
Right.
of.
So I've heard that through all the years from many people. And sometimes Baba would say, "Oh, we don't need to do that." And then obviously he would do it. So I've never understood that. So if you're Zoroastrian and you're growing up, and then in that family, and then you take Baba to be God, do they still keep? Do you still keep practicing the Zoroastrian religion? Or is it just that ceremony is?
Yeah, like I've had the ceremony. My daughter's had it too. My husband's had his. I mean, there's no fire temple here for us to go to, so it's not like, we're going. When we visit India, we'll of course go. But like it's one of those things like Baba also talked about like good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. The 101 names of God that he gave for people to repeat are directly from like our Avesta, our prayer book. They're those are 101 names of God. So it's never, for me, at least in my mind, it's never been different, right? Like there's been no pull for me that it's one or the other. Like both just blend well together for me. And I know like Baba told many of his followers, like you don't have to give up your religion, right? Like you can keep your religion. Baba was more against people doing rituals that have lost meaning because people just do things, whether it's recite prayers or go to the temple, bow down here, bow down there. But if your heart is not in it and you're not feeling it, like what's the use of that? But look at how compassionate he is because he gave us these three prayers, right? That he gave us and said, recite these. Like, because I've given them to you in this Advent, even if you just blindly just recite them, they have their power. And so, like, we've had that with her. We've had those prayers with her, from the time she was little. But she was very interesting. She spoke very early, like 6 months old. Her first word was happy, happy. That's what she said. And then at 10 months old, so my mom really likes jewelry. Sanaz has got this from her. Sanaz really likes jewelry. I'm not a big jewelry person. I like some jewelry, but I can take it or leave it. So we were in a jewelry store, and Sanaz is a baby. She's like 10 months old, and I'm holding her. And she takes her little hand and points to all these beautiful jewels and gold we're looking at. And she goes, all this, Baba's. And I told my mom, I said, did you tell her this? Did you like tell her this? She's like, no, I was going to ask you. I'm like, no, I didn't tell her this. 3 more times in that jewelry store, all this, Baba's. I'm like, it's true, it is all his. But like
That's
the whole
all.
connection between like jewelry and being Baba's, and my mom's like, well, should we buy something or not buy something? Like all this is Baba's, is it going to disappear? And the funny thing was, so Sanaz, my mom would always buy really nice little earrings for her. She would always lose an earring, like one lost, because she would fiddle with it, right? Like in her ear, and the little thing would come loose and fall off. Eventually, usually we'd find it because it was in the house that she would lose it. But so Sanaz and my mom love their jewelry, but I think they both realize it is all Baba's. At least Sanaz as a baby reminded us all of this is Baba's.
Sweet. Richard.
Beat me to it.
Well, I'm completely out of touch with anybody that you might know, but especially the younger generations, Jasmine, including you and your generation. But there is a young woman who's about to deliver a kid in a month or so named Margie Connor.
I
And I
know
would imagine
Margie.
your daughter might know. Yeah.
Margie was actually one of Sanaz's counselors at the Youth Sahavas, not well, maybe this last year, I'm not sure, but yeah, we know Margie. So yeah, she's gonna have a little baby. It's exciting, you know, these little Baba souls coming into the world. They're always so amazing, you know, Baba babies are just amazing, amazing.
And this is my wife, Terry, and she has a question.
I don't really have a
Terry.
question. I just want to say it's my first time interacting with you, and you are just so delightful. And
thank you.
storytelling is just so lovely. And I don't know if you heard, but it's the night before my surgery tomorrow. And even though Bubba's with me, I'm still a little freaked out. And you really gave me a gift tonight. I'm in my gratitude. So thank you, and thank Bubba and Jay Bubba.
Jay Baba, I'll be thinking of you tomorrow.
Thank you so much, honey. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyone else have a question or would like to share anything? Don't see any hands up, Diane.
I think Paula, are you trying to get on? Yeah, I think Paula is.
Okay.
She's trying.
There you are. Okay. Go.
Hello. I just want to, Jasmine, it's was wonderful meeting you tonight and hearing your stories. And there's just such a warmth from you. And thank you, Jay Baba.
Jay Baba, thank you.
We have a couple of the
I'm here.
Jasmine. Oh, you're still.
No, I'm here in Asheville, North Carolina, where we've really struggled here. This last month has been an incredible journey for everyone in this area. So anyway, so this was
like you kept your house, Paula, huh?
Oh, my house is here. Yes.
Yes, I see. Thank God.
I had minor roof damage, but you know, I'm high on a hill and I wasn't near the flood area. But there was quite a lot of devastation in this area. Yeah. So, you know, there's just this the main thing is it's just this community grief, you know, and it's such fatigue. Everyone is so tired. You know, we all have like power back and water starting to come in. The whole water system was totally destroyed for this area, but it's just been quite a journey. Yeah.
I've been remembering all of you all because there's so many Baba lovers in Asheville, and to see the devastation there has just been shocking.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I've never seen floodwaters reach the roof of houses, but I did in those photos I saw.
I know. Well, thank you. We felt all your love from all over. But thank you for your tonight. This was I haven't connected in a while, so
yeah. So Paula,
it's been an altered state.
How are you showering, Paula?
Well, like India, you know, India was like a preparation for this. You know, bucket baths. Because the water's not good to drink yet. You know, it's not safe to drink. So, but we have received so much water and supplies. So, like bottled water and all of that everywhere. Yeah, I just boiled water today and I put it in a little tub in the bathtub, and then I put some colder water, and you know, it's like the every 3 days India thing, you know. Yeah. We're good.
Wow.
I feel it's a preparation for days to come. I don't know. For some reason, I was having dinner with a friend tonight, and we just felt like this is kind of preparation for days to come. I don't know. Jai Baba, everybody.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Well, if no one else has any more to share, then maybe we should call it a night, because I know Diane and Terry have to depart early because of Terry's surgery. We wish you all the best, Terry. You'll do wonderful. You'll do
Richard, did you really
Baba's,
want to expand as we're saying?
Sorry, Diane, we were saying.
One more thought I had, that there's a woman who's trying to sell her house named Betty, and she's trying to move down near Mariposa and Ron. And I don't know if you know them or not, but Betty's a real trooper. She's been around Baba since the Redwoods. But I hope you get to meet her.
She sold her house.
She sold it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
No, it fell through at the last minute. They misjudged the income of the. Oh, there she is.
Hi, Betty. We're talking about you.
I know.
Did it fall through?
Yeah. Actually, it's a good thing. Yeah, I think I can do better.
Oh, okay, Baba.
You know what Baba says, delays, there's always a gift. There's a reason.
I feel like totally he's involved.
Yeah.
I have not yet sold my house.
That's right.
It's a slow housing market right now. We just put ours for sale too, because we want to downsize a little bit from our very big house. But I think we're just going to have to wait a bit.
Jasmine, you know, I was so long ago, Joanna Tompkins,
yes.
this little gathering. I remember your stories.
I remember you too, Betty. I remember you.
Yeah, this was great tonight. I'm so glad to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Thanks, Richard.
Nazreen,
Thank you very much, Joe.
Nazreen, would you like to lead us?
Well, if everyone's done, I would just like to thank Jasmine again for your lovely, delightful stories, Jasmine, and for sharing all that you did with us. It was truly marvelous. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Yeah, so Nasreen, if you're there, can you please sign us out with 3 Jai Babas?
Oh, Nasreen.
No, Nasreen, I see her on the
Yes,
audio.
yes, I am. Hello. Yes, okay.
Okay.
So let's go. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Jai Baba, thank you all.
Jai
Baba. Thank you.
Terry.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Jai Baba.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba. Terry, I want to wish you much love.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
healing.
Yes, from Marion too. Lots of love.
Janet as well.
Let you all know how it goes.
I'll be thinking about you.
Bring us some pieces of your old knee. Show her.
Ooh.
I don't think there's anything there, to be honest with you. I think.
Are you having a knee replacement?
I am.
I had one. I have had 2.
Wow.
And you're smiling big, so they must
have smiling big. Yeah.
There you go. That's
big. Jai Baba.
Thanks for all the
Thank you.
Jai Baba.
All right. I'm going to say
Gulnar.
goodnight, so I'm going to end the meeting.
Very nice.
Yes, thank you, Diane. Thank you so much for helping.
Always. Thank you for filling in for you're a great substitute teacher.
Great.
Oh, I could fill his shoes, you know that.
And Marvin, thank you for that wonderful blind date story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not prepared yet. It'll come later.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.